Hello and welcome to this episode of the Iceworld podcast. I'm Nadia Frontier and I spent 3 years working across Rothera Research Station on the Antarctic Peninsula and King Edward Point on the sub-Antarctic island of South Georgia. Today, I'll be talking to two people who have just returned from one of the most remote and extreme environments on Earth, the Antarctic deep field. We often hear from researchers based at stations like Rothera or Halley, but the deep field is a different beast entirely. We're talking about camps set up miles from the nearest station in isolated locations where the conditions are unforgiving. My guests today are Zelna Weish and Charlotte Phillips. They've both just come back from the deep field after working on the Rewind project, drilling an ice core to help reconstruct past climate. So Zelna, welcome to the podcast. Let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what the Rewind project is all about, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Zelna. I'm a PhD student going into a postdoc at the British Antarctic Survey with the ice core team. And I went south with the Rewind project to collect an ice core. Rewind is all about reconstructing how the winds in the southern hemisphere behaved as we go back in time. And we use the ice core that we drilled this season and in the last season to reconstruct those winds and basically use it as a time machine to understand how the climate changed in the past.
So you've been with the British Antarctic Survey for a good number of years. And what did you do before starting your PhD?
Before starting my PhD, I did my master's degree and undergrad in geography. I've just been studying the climate this whole time.
And Charlotte, welcome to you too. Great to have you here on the podcast. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to be involved in the Rewind project?
My background's in chemistry. So before being at BAS, I did a chemistry degree, and now I'm here as a PhD student, also in the ice core team. So I started in 2024, so I'm still relatively a newbie to BAS life. And I suppose my role kind of with Rewind was much the same as most people, just kind of being an extra pair of hands. It's a very involved process, drilling an ice core. Also, on another side, I was running my own separate project as part of my PhD. So I was collecting various snow samples, and Zelna helped me dig some snow pits and drill some little shorter cores, which hopefully I'll also get to analyse for all of the molecules that I'm interested in.
Oh, that's super cool. I like that you could have a little add-on with your PhD project. Was that always the plan?
Yes and no. I think it was sort of more so to drill the core, and I think it was sort of more opportunist. It was also, it was planned before I got there. So it wasn't like I just showed up and thought, let's collect loads of stuff. So I did kind of plan a little bit in advance, but no, I was mostly there to drill an ice core.
And Zelna, how did you get recruited onto the Rewind project? And actually, what does Rewind stand for?
Ooh, good question. It's about reconstructing winds. So re-wind. I think that's mainly where it comes from. And there's a bit of carbon dioxide stuff in there as well. So I got roped into Rewind probably for similar reasons to Charlotte. Really great to get involved in such a hands-on project. And the other reason why I've been involved in Rewind is because my PhD has mainly been focused on sea ice and how sea ice has changed in the recent past. Those westerly winds that I've talked about, that this whole project is about reconstructing, they've got a really strong influence on sea ice. So when we get things back into the lab and we analyse that ice core, we're going to find out a lot about sea ice. And part of my job in the next few years is going to be untangling exactly what the relationship is between these changes in the winds and changes in sea ice.
Nice. And you've both just got back from the field. Zelna, was this your first time in the field? And how long in total were you away for?
We're away for about 2.5 months, I want to say, 2 months. 2 months, yeah. And it wasn't my first time in the field. I've been on a ship before, but that is a very different experience to going and working in deep field. It's a lot more uncomfortable and challenging in the deep field, but it's also a lot more fun.
And Charlotte, was this your first time in the field, given that you are a second-year PhD student?
Yes, I am in my second year. And yes, this was my first time in the field, which is really exciting.
Wow. I mean, for you two as early career researchers, it's a pretty amazing thing to be involved in such a big multidisciplinary project at such early career stages. So yeah, were you quite apprehensive about going down, or what were your initial feelings when you first got asked to go on this project leaving your whole life and suspending it for a good couple of months?
Yeah, I was really anxious before leaving. So, because going to Antarctica has been a lifelong dream of mine. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And I think when it was in that dream state, it was quite it was almost comfortable there because it was a little bit unattainable and wonderful. And then, so when I found out that I was going, my initial thoughts were, I'm so excited. I just like texted everyone I know, like, I'm going to Antarctica. And then that sort of slowly kind of subsided into a bit of an anxiety and an apprehension, because my brain started to rethink. I think because I'd been thinking, I want to do this for so long, the reality of it then kind of set in, and I started to rethink why do I want to go and to the most extreme part of the world and not shower for 2.5 months and live in a tent and not have a toilet and all of these things? And you start to really overthink it. And of course, BAS have all of the logistics, all of the training, all of the people. There are these things in place to help you out. And actually, it meant that when I got to the fields, I could just approach it head on and kind of just get stuck in, because I'd kind of gone through all of that apprehension before getting there.
Zelna, what about you? Like, how long did you have from knowing you were going until getting deployed?
I was a little bit later than Charlotte, but not as late as the latest person in our team. Latest person in our team, Cam, got a week's notice, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Can you imagine preparing to go south, particularly into the field, with a week's notice? So I think a lot more notice than him. I knew in June, July that I was going. I had a bit of time to prepare. And we did lots of preparation stuff as a team as well, which was really nice. So we all got together and we all talked about our personality types and, what things when we're working hard and we're going to get frustrated and tired, what do we turn into? So that was, really good preparation, but also made us all a little bit scared, I think, because we had quite an honest conversation about how hard working in the field can be. It's been a busy year for me, so I don't think I really had all that much time to get too apprehensive about it. I was more looking forward to it as a break from writing up. And it was a really nice break from writing up, actually. I really enjoyed the practical aspect of it and making progress on stuff every day, and also the problem solving aspect of it, just problem shooting when you don't have the normal resources. I found that really fun.
And what kind of temperatures were you both exposed to whilst in the deep field?
I suppose the average temperature was probably around -17, I want to say. We were really lucky. Near the start, we had some really warm days, quite a long period of sunshine, about -9. And that did feel very balmy.
The week before Charlotte came, it was terrible weather. And it was -25 the whole week. And then Charlotte came and they brought the good weather with them. And we just got this absolutely amazing weather window where it's just glorious sunshine. It was amazing.
Where exactly was your field location, Zelna, relative to Rothera Research Station, which is where you transited through?
We took 3 flights to get to our research location from Rothera. I didn't go in via Rothera, but going back to Rothera, it was a flight to Sky Blue, a short little hop over. Sky Blue is about 50 kilometres away, a bit less. And then we went to Fossil Bluff, which was a good few hours flight, and then over to Rothera, which was another good few hours flight. Full day of flying to get home.
Where exactly is this field location for listeners that might not know where Sky Blue and Fossil Bluff are?
I sort of think of it as being right at the base of the Antarctic Peninsula. It is approximately -75 south, so quite far south.
And how long did you spend at Rothera, Charlotte, before then being deployed into the field? Did you get a bit of a feel of what station life was like?
Yes, I certainly did. I was there for about 12 days, which was really fun. I think, obviously, you never really know how long you're going to be there because you're waiting for that weather window. And we did have probably a good 4 or 5 of those days where we were up early every morning, packed, ready to leave, and just kind of waiting for the fly pro to come out and whether it would be our day or not. But it was really fun because it meant that we got really stuck in. It was a good amount of time to meet lots of different people who then, when we came back to station, were still there. And it was a really good way to experience station life and also help out with other things that were happening. So we were on Gash one day. We went out onto the boats and kind of supported some of the marine science. At one point, I released a weather balloon and talked to a lot of the Met people. So I got really stuck in and really, really enjoyed my time at Rothera.
Nice. And then Gash is that washing up day. So
Yes.
I like that you mentioned that as your first highlight. washing up and helping out in the kitchen and chopping
Not the
veg.
wildlife.
I actually really enjoyed Gash because I think a couple of days before we were starting to run out of jobs, like prepping for the field jobs and kind of sorting through cargo. And we were starting to feel a little bit like at a loose end, and just feel like I'm contributing and helping to Rotherham as a community as well. So I found it really rewarding personally.
We got about a week on the way back. I really enjoyed that as well. It felt like a real luxury after being in the field. It was really cozy and comfortable. I love the community there as well. It was really nice.
Charlotte, how did you feel that then your field life compared to this beautiful, luxurious station that you had just spent almost 2 weeks on? And can you describe to us a little bit about the setup? What was it like?
Well, I think actually by the time we got out to the field, I was just really excited. Everyone was there by that point. We were kind of the last people to join. I think I was maybe starting to get FOMO and kind of wanted to get there and see everyone and get on with it. So it was really fun. And like I said, we were kind of blessed with this lovely weather window in the first few days that we were there. So it wasn't quite so much of a kind of stark awakening to the extremities of field life. It was quite a nice settle in a way. And actually, a lot of the camp had also been set up for us. So I'm not going to take any credit for that. When you're in the field, all of your tents are in a line, just because otherwise you get the wind tails from the snow. And then otherwise you just have snow building up all over the place and it'd be a nightmare. I don't know, how many pyramid tents did we have in total for everyone? About six? Yeah. So we had 6 pyramid tents, and then we'd have a living weather haven, which is where we would cook and socialise. And then next to that, we had our drilling tent, which was actually a massive trench that we had to dig out. That took a very long time as well, with a tent over the top. And that was kind of where the action was happening, where we were drilling our ice core, where we'd spend our 12-hour shifts. And then on from there, you'd have kind of generator tents and cargo lines and the skidoos. And then right at the end, we had our skiway where the planes would come and land, with some toilet tents and P flags dotted in and amongst all of that as well.
What an operation. And how many people are in the Rewind team, Zelna? And what does the shift pattern look like? How do you distribute the work?
The Rewind team as a project is the field team, but also we've got this team at Cambridge as well. So it was sort of a subset of that bigger Rewind team that actually inputted in the field. So we've got lots of people who were based at home or went last field season but didn't come for this field season. The overall team that we had in the field, there was 12 of us at some points, 11 of us at other points. We had a sort of rotating team. Some of us were scientists. So Charlotte and myself count as scientists. And we have people like Jack and Manon who are more on the lab side. Liz, who's our team leader. And we also had a group of engineers. So we had 2 engineers. And then we also had a field team. So we had our main field guide, Andy, and then we had 2 separate KTs as well come along and be in the field as well. We did get a skidoo with 2 people come and visit from Sky Blue for a day. That was quite funny.
How do you distribute the work then? What is this 12-hour shift that Charlotte's talking about?
It's not as bad as it sounds, especially when I say the shift pattern was 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that makes it sound completely horrible. But you've got to remember that it's 24 hours of daylight. So it did get colder in the night, but the sun was still up. So I was on the 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift pattern. So I'd wake up at 1 a.m., but the sun would be up. And then it would be colder and it would get gradually warmer throughout the day. And we also had sort of like an hour in the middle of the day where we all had off. So Charlotte would be having breakfast, I would be having dinner, and then we'd meet up and like discuss our days. But whilst we were on shift, so during this 12 hours, somebody would be controlling the drill, so sending it up and down. And sometimes it would take like 40 minutes for the drill to go down, all the way down to the bottom of the borehole, drill, and then come back up. So there's quite a lot of waiting around if you're not operating the drill. You bring the ice core up from the borehole, and then a team of you are extracting the ice from the drill, and then processing it, putting it into bags, putting it into boxes to be sent away.
Maybe as a listener, or at least when I was younger, I used to think an ice core would just be this continuous core that would come up in one go, and that you could probably do it in a day. But what is the actual reality? Like, how are we extracting, and how deep are you going, and how many pieces of ice can you take out at a time?
Most people I talk to have that question of, but how do you transport this continuous cylinder of ice that stretches for hundreds of meters? And of course we don't. We have to drill it in much shorter sections. about a meter long, and every single time that drill is going up and down and up and down your borehole. And so that lengthens out that process massively, because actually a lot of the time you're basically just sat waiting for the winch to get down to the depth that you've reached and drill that next bit. So it does take a really long time. Before leaving for Rewind, we were analysing the Beyond Epoca oldest ice core, which was the kind of record-breaking 2.8 kilometre long ice core, which is an insane depth. And that took them, I think, 3 separate seasons to drill.
So the hole is basically covered by a little like toilet seat. And then there's like wood sort of protecting that hole. So we spent like 3 weeks at the start of the season digging out to find that hole. So you have this floor and then like walls either side that are, how tall are those walls? 3-4 meters?
Yeah.
3-4 meters of snow that you have to dig down and find again before you can start drilling in the following season.
Yeah, it was like digging for treasure. Yeah.
And how wide is the hole? If you're, digging 4 meters down, are you able to fit into this hole in order to extract the snow?
I think of the hole as like the size of my thigh. It's sort of like that thickness.
Yeah, that's the diameter of your borehole. It's probably about 10 centimetres, maybe a bit wider. The ice cores that come up are a diameter of about 10 centimetres, so the borehole is probably a bit bigger. The kind of cavern that we had to dig out was our working space. So that was obviously much bigger. That was sort of the kind of the size of a tent would be. So there's a great picture from last season when they went and sent all the cargo out and set up. And you can see where they've put the ply flooring down, they've got the drill, they've got the weather haven over it. And there's an almost equivalent picture from this season where it's the exact same setup, but there's a 3-meter high ice wall in between the tent and the plywood flooring. And that's what we had to dig out just to start and get going this season. So yeah, lots of prep before we even start drilling.
And in terms of physical preparation, so it sounded like there was a lot of digging in order to be able to start to even get the core. Was there any training that you had to do in order to be able to be ready for this deployment physically as well as mentally?
No, not particularly, actually. I think I did actually go to the gym a little bit beforehand, but that was just because I realized that I had absolute noodle arms and wanted to do something about it. That wasn't really because I was going to Antarctica, but I thought, it might stand me in good stead. But I actually came back and went back to the gym and realized that the weights I was lifting now felt really light. So I must have kind of grown some muscles from doing all that digging. That was quite satisfying, actually. So no, not much preparation beforehand, but I definitely got stronger by being there. But my cardio has absolutely hit the floor. I think it's quite hard to maintain your cardiovascular fitness while you're out there. Zelna did a much better job than I did, or most people did, I think. But yeah, it's since coming back, running is a lot more sluggish than I remember it being.
Well, you're a marathon runner, Zelna. So what did you do to keep your cardio going?
I think there's a difference between marathon runner and half runner marathon. Nadia, I'm definitely the half runner marathon. We had this skiway for the planes to land on. So I went on a couple of runs on the skiway, but because there's no showers, you can't shower after your run. So if you do go, you just feel bad for everybody around you because you're going to smell so much worse.
And Charlotte, can you give a bit of an insight into a typical day? So half the team are on one set of shift patterns and the other half are on a different set. And then what are you doing around the breakfast and the lunch and the dinner times, and what are you eating?
Yeah, so I think also the kind of routine would be quite different depending on which shift you were on, because so I would start my shift at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And because it was sort of daytime when we were waking up, I didn't really mind waking up a little bit earlier and having a bit more time in the morning. So spending a bit more time over my breakfast. And normally it would normally be a porridge or a muesli. We've got powdered milk. So you just kind of add water, mix it all together. Doesn't taste as bad as that sounds. But we also had lots of dried fruit and nuts. So I was just gorging on them all the time. And then, so I'd normally be eating that breakfast while Zelna, for example, is eating her dinner. And we're kind of all sat around the table having a good chat about maybe stuff that have happened in the last 24 hours or anything else, really. And then I would start my shift, and that's 12 hours. A lot of your shift is actually just waiting around. If there's a problem, there's actually quite a lot to do because you're trying to fix it and you're running around coming up with new ideas and you're like you're unscrewing that thing and botching together that. But if it's working smoothly, which is what you hope for, actually, there's only one person needs to operate the drill, and that process of actually extracting the ice from the drill and then sending the drill back down is quite swift. And so that's when you need all your hands there, but that happens very quickly as well. So there's a lot of time where you're maybe sat around waiting. So would spend a lot of the shifts dancing around and just kind of playing music and just kind of keeping the energy up, also keeping warm. Dancing is a great way to keep warm. And then, yeah, towards the end of the shift, because we would finish at 2 p.m., these guys would come in and get going, and I would normally have quite a quick dinner and get into my sleeping bag as quick as I could. By that point, I'd maybe have a little chat with my tent mate, or would sit and read my book for about an hour and then go to sleep. So that's sort of the daily routine, and there isn't really much deviation from that when you're in the swing of drilling. That's kind of what every day looks like.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we did get lunch.
Oh yeah, we did
as well. Yeah. We were allowed to leave the drilling tent. It was quite chill, actually. It wasn't like you were on shift for 12 hours and you weren't allowed to leave. It was you could go out and have lunch. And the lunch was normally like either like powdered soup or like a freeze-dried like packet meal, like sort of army rations. And then for dinner we had Rotherham takeaway, which was very fancy.
Rotherham takeaway is essentially leftover food from Rotherham that they then bag up and freeze. So you could kind of like cook it up sort of bain-marie style very easily. And that was nice because it meant that we got proper kind of curries or chilies or things like that. So these guys would have that for their dinner when I was having breakfast. And then I would normally they'd sort of cook it all together and or maybe leave some portions for us to have. And I would normally have that as my lunch. And kind of have my main meal in the middle of my shift. And so by the time I got to the end of my shift, I'd grab one of those dehydrated ration packs, add the water and inhale that. Because by that point I was like, yeah,
it's pretty hardcore.
I'm
really impressed that you spent so long in the field living like that. It is honestly amazing.
It really simplifies your life, like I think when you're in Cambridge especially, there's so much to do all the time. There's always like a pull to, do I go to this social activity tonight, or do I need to do some more work, or should I see these people, should I do this, should I do that, should I work from home today, what should I have for dinner, I could go out, I could eat. There's so many different options, and life in the field is just so simple by comparison. I know exactly what I'm doing every day. My options for eating, well, there's 4 different kinds of dehydrated meals, so I'm gonna have one of those for lunch. And dinner, well, I'm going to have what everybody else is having for dinner, so that makes life a lot easier.
And Charlotte, did you kind of know what your living situation would be like? These tents with very thick sleeping bags and tilly lamps, going back to war times, like you're literally pouring fuel to make heat and light in a tent.
We do a lot of training, obviously, and it wasn't the first time that we'd pitched a pyramid tent. Although the first time I pitched a pyramid tent was in Cambridge in July, so I think it was kind of missing the sort of general atmosphere of Antarctica and it being cold. But it was quite nice to see what these tents actually look like and practice lighting these tilly lamps. And again, it was sort of... It's slightly bizarre getting into your sleeping bag and then getting fuel out and dealing with that just before bedtime. But again, you kind of do just get used to it.
And did you get any downtime, Zelna, or was it just constant 12-hour shift for 2.5 months?
No, we definitely got some downtime. We got Christmas off. That was actually really lovely. We had such a nice Christmas. We got some really fancy food flown over from Rotherham. So I think the meat eaters had some duck breast, and we had some nut roast for the veggies. We had a really lovely sunny day, so we went outside and played some cricket, and had little like arts and crafts things going on. And everybody got their downtime after the shift as well. So I mean, people were either reading a lot or doing little crafty things. We played some fun games as well in the evenings, particularly before we were on the 12-hour shift. We had lots of fun playing like bananagrams or the other one, Poetry of the Neanderthals. That was really good.
That was
the highlight
one.
of the
Yeah. Also, Monopoly Deal and Mahjong were also popular.
Mahjong took a bit of learning.
And that was in this weather haven, Charlotte, that you described at the start. So essentially that's just like a big area with tables where you also have your meals and is heated by a stove.
We kind of had one long table which would sit, so you could just about squeeze all 12 of us around it. And it actually became quite homely. I think, like anything, you put the basics in, and then over time the space evolved a little bit. So we had the kind of stoves in one corner, and that was our cooking corner. And we always had the big pot melting snow for our water over there. Along one side, we also had all the boxes of food, so you could constantly grab a snack. It was actually quite bad. You're just constantly going, oh, I'll have a bit of that right now, because it's just out on display for you. And then another corner had sort of all of our comms stuff. So the radios, the Iridium phones, and we had a sort of charging deck where you were able to charge up a phone or any sort of electronic device. And so, yeah, that space was kind of a multi-purpose living space. But actually later on in the field, we separately set up a clam tent, and we called it the Cozy Clam, because we realized that sometimes people wanted a space that wasn't their sleeping tent, but was maybe kind of a bit quieter or a bit less chaotic than that big living weather haven. And that was really nice spot as well. Kind of we actually had some puzzles which we put in there, and that became very good for a little movie night every now and then, which was really nice as well.
Oh, it's amazing what you can achieve in the deep field. Sounds pretty close to station life, actually. Impressive. And how did you stay in touch? I kind of am aware that you have Starlink in the middle of Antarctica.
Yeah, that was crazy. You could just like video call people whilst you're in the middle of the field. It really like through me, you get this taste of like, you know, of Christmas, calling people, and everybody's having their Christmas dinner and they've got their Christmas trees up and you're just looking around. It's like, wow, this is a really different environment. It's just like flat white and super bright sunshine. And so, yeah, it was really cool to be able to keep in touch with people. I know that's a big shift that's happened. It really helped because you can still stay in touch with friends and family. But at the same time, it does make you a bit more homesick, I think, at points when you can actually see what people are doing. So it has its pros and cons.
And how did you find working with such a small group of people, just 12 of you? Were there challenges associated with quite a small team?
I think there are always challenges with these things. You know, there's always going to be times where someone's tired, someone's exhausted, things get on different people's nerves. But we were really good at having a discussion actually before we left as a group, where we kind of maybe fessed up to a couple of things maybe in advance. For example, I talk a lot. And so I just said, if I start to annoy you because I'm really chatty, please do just tell me. I won't take it personally. And so it was quite nice in a way to have a conversation like that and just kind of put everything out on the table.
And now coming back to civilization, Zona, how was it when you said that life in the field becomes almost routine? You get so used to it. What's it then like coming back out of that?
Really good in parts, and other bits took a bit of getting used to. That first shower, oh, so good. I think that's what me, you, and Manon all said that. We were like, oh, the first shower. So that was really nice. Feeling clean again. Also just like having all that variety of choice in the shops and having to decide what you're having for dinner. Quite a common experience. I think people take a bit of time to get used to that. I also found getting back into the standard of hygiene quite hard. Like, you go from like not showering for 2 months to having to shower every day. I remember thinking like, this is a bit egregious. I have to take like 10 minutes out of my day every day. Like, come on, I'm clean, I swear. Which I now obviously shower every day again. But like for the first week, I was like, come on, this is a waste of time.
I definitely felt the overwhelming thing as well. I had quite a funny moment when I first got back to Cambridge, and I was cycling into the lab. And there were cars everywhere, there were cyclists everywhere, there were people, and I was just like focusing on all the wrong things because my brain just didn't really know. I didn't really know where to look or what to focus on. I had to be like, no, Charlotte, focus on the road. You're going to get hit by a car if you don't. And it was just so weird having it. It just felt so noisy and overwhelming. And that was a real particular instance where I went, yes, okay. That's the field part of my brain that's talking. 2.5 months in some ways is a long time. And other ways I thought, it could be quite short. I'm not sure I'd experience it that much, at least not in comparison to winterers who have been there for 18 months. That just took me so much longer than I was expecting.
So my final question to both of you two is, what do you wish that everybody knew about Antarctica?
What I want everyone to know about Antarctica is that it's in the south. It's where the penguins are, not the polar bears. But it's also really, really important. It's even though it's so remote and far away, it really does impact us all and really shouldn't be forgotten about.
Yeah, I think that echo Charlotte's sentiments. First off, the amount of people that think there's polar bears there. I think everybody should know it's penguins, not polar bears. The significance of it for the global climate system, it cannot be understated, that it's such an important part of the world. And it's so important that we understand how it changed in the past so that we understand how it might change in the future in relation to what humans are doing to the climate system. So these projects, like these ice coring projects, are so important. And it's part of what makes polar research so important, is this time machine aspect of it.
A really powerful end. Thank you. Thank you both so much for your time. It's been really interesting to have an insight into the daily life in the field, whilst also answering and tackling such important questions. So I wish you a fruitful science journey.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And if Zelna and Charlotte's dehydrated soup and ration packs didn't put you off too much, then join us next time to hear more about Antarctic cuisine. We'll be exploring the possibility and feasibility of being plant-based in Antarctica, whilst also hearing from a French chef. So make sure you tune into that one. Please do continue to check out the British Antarctic Survey's website, where news stories and job openings are regularly posted. I'm Nadia Frontier, and thank you for listening.